Salutations and shit, folks. Welcome, welcome, welcome back to another episode of Travel and Shit, your new favorite travel podcast, where I, your host, have an experiential conversation about travel and the experiences and the interactions and the way our lives have been improved based on travel, as opposed to just where I went and how I did it. Happy fucking New Year, folks. We've made it to the 21s of the 2000s, and I'm happy to fucking be here. Anything new? Can't say there is. Still merch. Still a planning course for those travelers of you that need a little extra confidence. That's still available. And I still have a mailing list. It's still there waiting for you to not get that many emails. In my head, I'm going to send y'all a, hey, happy new year email. Just haven't been moved by the spirit to do so. But appreciate y'all folks here for the long haul. Welcome back into another year of travel and shit. I am truly humbled and grateful to have you guys, and the notes and the merch you guys have been tagging me in and texting me. I truly, truly am grateful for you guys. And I ended 2020 with that same sense of gratitude. And I'm happy to say that I have begun 2021 with said same gratitude. And I'm looking forward to continuing to serve you as your low key, high key, extra sometimes, unextra other times travel homie that likes to just talk a lot of shit about travel. So we back at it, y'all. So that was the intro. A smooth 2 minutes and 18 seconds. I fucks with it. Now, for what you've been waiting for, the real shit. I have a guest. I am happy to start my year off with company. So to my beautiful guest, please welcome to Travel and Shit and do us the honor of introducing yourself.
You know what? I'm so grateful to be here. To be the first guest of the year is just truly an honor. Sharing, traveling with the world, what you're doing is amazing. My name is Kateri. I'm here to represent Millennial Channel. We're a nonprofit that's really working to share how traveling can be used as advocacy. A lot of Black millennials and brown travelers are traveling the world every day. I mean, at a rate that we just really can't keep up with. I mean, just the amount of money that we're spending on travel is huge. And so I really think that there's so much that can be done with that. So I'm really happy to be here to talk with you about, all the great things that come along with just traveling. And traveling is fun. So that just goes to say that advocacy is fun itself.
Oh, that's actually a decent. I like the way that that's put, because you don't necessarily have to look at advocacy as your civil duty or a chore or something that you feel forced to do in any fashion. It's just like you can do good without having to really like break your neck. Like you don't have to go out of your way to be impactful in some form or fashion to other people, especially I've mentioned in previous episodes to be of service to the communities that you are positioning yourself in while on your travels. And I am really happy to have you here to discuss this in a more structured and intentional fashion, as opposed to just shopping local or, trying to stay at boutique hotels or to patronize Airbnbs. And when choosing an Airbnb, to select an Airbnb that actually is owned by someone that lives in the area, as opposed to someone that, is just purchasing properties in other locations for the profit. So before we get into what you do with your company, like what is your travel style? Who are you as a traveler? Let us get to know you a bit.
Well, we're definitely not a company. We're a nonprofit. We're really just
Okay.
people by the people. But I am an eclectic traveler. Because I really think outside the box when I'm traveling. I'm the type of traveler that likes to spend a month traveling through Colombia because I want to go to the mountains and the beaches. I want to see what the indigenous community is doing. One of the most insane places that I've been is Bhutan, which is near Nepal and China. And just experiencing their lifestyle there was amazing, because I really got to understand that, in Western culture, we just become so accustomed to how we live that we don't realize that there are other cultures that are meditating, that are going to their monks and asking for blessings, doing readings, all types of things that you would just never think about is common life. And to experience that in Bhutan, to know that they have a king and a queen that their people can just stop and say hello to experience that as a Black American traveler, it really changes my perspective of how I'm interacting with the world and how I perceive the world. And I think that all Black millennials, all brown travelers really need to go outside of the box. I mean, we all are going to eventually get to, Paris, and we're all going to go to Spain, but why not go to places like Taiwan or India, places that we just, can experience a new culture and language that really just will change our perspective of the world.
So how did you end up in Bhutan?
Oh my gosh. So of all the stories, you asked me that. So I was at a random party in New York City. And there was a woman there who was essentially related to the royalty of Bhutan. And she was a guest of the person whose party it was. And so we were all just, drinking, having a great conversation. And they say that they're going to Bhutan. Now, I can assure you, I had never heard of Bhutan before that conversation. I said, Bhutan. I said, well, now, okay. I said, well, I want to go. They said, well, you can definitely go. I mean, they explained to me all I had to do was just, buy my flight. But the thing about Bhutan is you can only arrive through India or Thailand or I think Nepal, one other country. I don't recall the third one. But I talked about it on Millennial Channel, at Millennial Channel. I had one of my guest speakers on there that runs a company in Bhutan, and we really hashed out all of the interesting things that come along with that, because you have to pay a visa every day just to be there. And I think it's about like $200, but it comes with a translator. It comes with transportation. It's just really interesting. I mean, it's just really an interesting way to travel. It's just like, what's happening? But to answer your question about how I got there, it was really, truly happenstance. I can assure you, I wasn't familiar with the country prior to my arrival.
Nice. So you mentioned that you like to travel for like a month at a time and stay and explore different areas, different countries and cities. Was that your experience in Bhutan as well?
I would say that I was in Bhutan for about maybe a week and a half. And
that's
then
still a nice time.
Yeah.
So what did you do?
I was in India before I went to Bhutan, and I was in India after I went to Bhutan.
Where were you before Bhutan?
Delhi.
Okay. So what was it like to have that type of concierge service, I guess? Like, since you're paying for the translator and the, I guess as part of the visa criteria, how was that experience with having that person with you different than, say, you pick up, you purchase your flight, you go someplace else and you're kind of at your own, you move at your own discretion. Like, did you feel restricted in any form? Were there any like governmental strings attached to your tie there? Like, it just seems kind of also like they're kind of putting a plant at least in my mind. I'm like, well, if you're assigning me a translator, that's useful, but who is this translator? Like, do you have any type of control over who your translator is? Because I mean, you went there and you knew someone, if you will, that was there. So what if you were, going with someone you knew?
There's so many layers to that question that I want to answer. So to answer the question directly, Bhutan has a very structured tourist industry, simply because of the fact that they don't want backpackers just staying in their mountains, because their mountains are very spiritual places for them. And they don't want that. And that's why you have to pay a travel visa every day. Now, just because you have a translator doesn't mean that you're restricted. It's more so just to get you through the day. And when I say that the travel through Bhutan is structured, I really mean in a sense that you see the same tourists in every place that you're going, even to the point that there's buffets in different places in the mountain because they expect you to be there. Okay. And so it is very structured. So, but then on the second hand, when you initially asked me your question, I thought of what was it like to have service available to you. And I think that like when you're in countries like that are not, in the West, when you're in countries that are not in the West, you don't have the same luxuries as like having house staff and service always available. But when you have that available to you in like other countries like India and things of that nature, it really changes the game. You really start to say to yourself, "Wow, I mean, having house staff is really not an out of the box equation."
Yeah. That was one of the things that I absolutely appreciated about parts of Cuba. Yeah, in Havana, I ended up having the husband and wife that owned the second property that I stayed in. Every morning they came and made me breakfast, and like they cleaned up after themselves making breakfast. They made sure that if I didn't need any towels or any linens or anything, so it wasn't that I wouldn't say that they were like staff, but like I had breakfast every morning. Same thing in Bali. The few days that I was up late enough, because most days I started super early because I did like a sunrise hike and I did something else that was like wild early or whatever. But for the days that I was able to wake up and enjoy a breakfast, the man that owned the house would come, cook, make sure I didn't need anything, didn't need to drop anything off, didn't need to like it was just that level of, oh, I don't have to do it myself. And it's not that it's one of those things where in my mind, from my experience, I'm not a luxury traveler because I can't afford luxury travel. But you realize how much you actually can afford when you go to countries outside of your I don't know, what's the most appropriate way to put it in terms of the way America, most of Europe functions. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if I want to say third world, but you get what I'm saying? Like you can go to so many other countries.
Stature, and so there's different statures of
Yeah.
the economy. But one of the great things about being in New York City is that you get great travel deals when you're flying all around the world. So that's one of the great things is like you're always going to be able to travel somewhere. I mean, even at
Yeah.
the last minute, and that's one of the great things about having access to international hubs.
That's one thing that I learned to appreciate. I want to say it was last summer or 2 summers ago. I was trying to find the best way to visit my best friend, but then at the same time get international. She lives in Kentucky. And so it was like, all right, well, I can visit her. I can be there for her graduation, stay there for about 3 or 4 days, then maybe go to, I don't know, Bali. I think I was looking to go to Bali around the same time I was going to her graduation. But the catch with that was I'm not spending $600 to fly there from fucking Nashville. But being in New York City, like you said, it's just there are so many like everything is so much cheaper flying out of a hub like JFK or LaGuardia, even from Newark versus.
And use your layovers. If you have a layover in a crazy city, then you're
Mhm.
like, what? Just go and get like a hotel for the night and go out to dinner in that city. I mean, you just never know what could happen. And sometimes people may be, not really interested in doing to that. In
No, I
doing
always say to book the layover because that's how I've been able to see so much with so few trips is it taking advantage of all the layovers. So when
Yeah.
you travel, are you a solo travel normally or do you
I'm
do
definitely a solo traveler usually. Absolutely usually a solo traveler.
now do you overpack, underpack, backpack?
I definitely overpack and then I shop along the way. So I end up like trying to figure out a way to get everything back on the flight all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's magic that we possess as travelers. I always like am teetering on the and just smile my way through to like not have people weigh my bags when I go. And then when I come back, it's just like, listen, if you catch me, you catch me. Cause at this point, I don't even know how I got all of this shit in here. Cause I
No,
refuse to check bags.
pay the guidelines like as much attention as I should because honestly, like if I can get away with just getting as much baggage into my carry-on as possible,
Hmm.
that's really the goal,
Yeah.
really.
I don't believe in checked luggage. But how do you
Yeah.
suggest or what is your um experience of travel in this in the form or fashion, I guess, would be how are you able to travel for an extensive period of time? Do you work remotely, or is it that you just maximize PTO? Like, how does that work for you? What is your normal person lifestyle that allows you to travel for like a month at a time?
You know what? That's such an interesting question, especially because I get it all the time. Literally, I get it from my friends, I get it from acquaintances. And I think that traveling is just so ingrained in my lifestyle and everything that I value that it's not something that I have to include in my life. It's something that is everything else has to be, scheduled around my travel. I think when a normal person would say, that their work would be first, and then that they would have their travel, associated in the pockets of time that they have left extra. I'm the type of person that I'm traveling all the time, and I'm being a creative, and I'm just, being as innovative and connecting all the dots, that I'm really just, working for the betterment of society rather than just thinking about, how I can really capitalize off of working in a corporate structure from a 9 to 5.
Okay, so you don't have your traditional 9 to 5 essentially.
Well, I wouldn't say that because I am doing the same work as that, but I just don't have to be confined by the boundaries of that.
Okay, so you have the luxury of working remote then, I would assume.
I guess that's implicit in the nature of the work.
Okay. Okay, because I guess what I'm trying to find out is if do you have the typical I swipe in or I have to report to my job at an assigned time per se, or because it sounds like you've just got a lot of free movement, or you've got the luxury of just being able to come and go with your work. Because I know that for the majority of my work history, I've always been confined to this is what my job is saying that I have to do. But I like highlighting different types of employment that allow people the luxury of, like you were saying, not being restricted by what is being placed on them by the workplace versus what you would like to offer to the workplace.
Yeah, I definitely would say it's more of the latter, and it's more of a freestyle approach.
Okay. So how did you get involved with millennial travel?
Millennial.
Millennial channel.
Well, Millennial Channel really is to incorporate, the intersections of travel and global politics. I really want people to see that, their traveling can be used as a soft power. I really think that traveling can be so impactful, and I think that it's sometimes overlooked. I think that just looking at, the Black travel alone, that's over $50 billion. But then if you look at it deeper, I mean, Black millennials are spending a large majority of that, and then you have brown millennials, which is over $50 billion. And if you think about that, you really could think that, wow, all of this money could really transform an entire economy just simply by, me deciding to go to that location. So that's, for example, saying Black millennials said, I'm going to go to Haiti at least once this year. If they decided to do that, that's $50 billion that would literally circulate in Haiti. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be something that's, easy to do if you're staying at a Ritz Carlton or the Marriott or the Hilton. That's something that you're going to be able to do if you're staying, at local hotels or hotels that are not really trying to avoid the local tax economy. So I really think that travel has so much power to it, and I really am working to allow brown millennials and millennials overall to see how they can use their travel dollars to really make a change.
Okay, so then in that vein, what if you let me specifically ask what does Millennial Channel provide? Are you guys like do you curate trips for millennials, or is it that you just are an information springboard for if I were to curate my own trip like I do, I would just be able to contact you guys and say, hey, what resources are available in this location in particular that I should be made aware of so that I know that the money that I'm spending is actually going to an organization or to a group of people that I trust are directly in tune with the local demographic versus governments or, larger corporations and businesses.
Well, I wanted to really essentially show that it's all of that. So to tell you the three core things that we do, we're doing pressuring tourist companies to help the humanitarian causes in the cities and countries that they're located. You know, if they have the resources and they have the money to help refugees and they have everything that's needed, why are not the tourists pressuring those companies that they support to help, you know, the refugees? We want to also dismantle this cliche colonial vision of brown countries. You know, a lot of people are understanding that, you know, brown countries are second and third world countries, but they are those things, or they have those characteristics simply because of the fact of this cliche colonial vision that was supposed to it was supposed to be. And because of that, and because it's a failed colonial vision, in that sense, it now has all of these negative characteristics. So we want to really destroy that. And then we want to educate and mobilize travelers on how to use their traveling as a soft power and a political act. And so we're doing a lot of things. You know, those three things that we're working on also have their subsections. So we're developing an app, you know, that will eventually be able to connect, you know, humanitarians internationally that are working on volunteer projects, and connect humanitarians internationally that are working on advocacy. You know, and we're also working to crowdfund for small villages. I was speaking with you earlier about, you know, we're looking to partner with a lot of indigenous communities that are in Paraguay. There's a lot of, you know, a lot of things that are really going on in those underprivileged communities, or whether it being that they lacking the, you know, the digital infrastructure, the technology infrastructure, or whether it's, you know, just the fact that they don't have clean water, or the fact that they don't have, you know, source of work because of the pandemic. So I'm really, you know, working with, you know, community leaders to see how we can be of assistance and to see how we can serve. One of the things that we are not doing is just assuming how we can be of service. We actually are trying to get into contact with these people first and say, hey, what's going on there and how can we be of help? I feel like a lot of times we have these NGOs that just assume they understand the infrastructure and how they can, you know, make it more Western, but I'm really not trying to Westernize that indigenous community. I'm really working to see how I can provide, you know, the resources that we have and the resources that we are going to be presented with, and transition it to them so that they are able to, you know, further thrive. And then we want to just, you know, overall just encourage travel to places that people would never think about going to. Like I said, Bhutan. You know, I wasn't afraid to go to Bhutan. When someone said to me they were going to Bhutan, I said, I'm hopping on the next flight. Where are we going? How are we going? You know, and that was one of the best experiences of my life. And so I want to really encourage travel to places that people would never go. I want people to go, you know, explore Brazil, explore Colombia, you know, explore South America, explore, you know, India, and all of these other places that we, you know, even Pakistan. Who would think to go to a vacation to Pakistan? But they probably learn so much just by visiting, you know? So I really think that we serve so many different purposes, but just to summarize, that's the best I could do.
So how do you provide those services to travelers directly? So where's that connection between Millennial Channel and myself?
So, you know, that's something, and that is the mystery that I'm continuing to try to figure out. You know, right now we're doing weekly Instagram lives where I am doing Instagram lives with people from all around the world that I'm connected with, from the Netherlands, from Colombia, from India, from Bhutan. I'm connecting with these people, these millennials overseas. And then I'm also trying to connect these millennials to the brown millennial community in the US. So right now I'm doing that by Instagram. But however, as soon as we launch our app, that's going to be the second medium that we're using. And of course, we have our website. And because of the pandemic, you know, there are those issues with, you know, having physical, you know, events. But, you know, once that's something that's able to be done, then that will also be something that's implemented.
So it sounds like for now, you guys are just an informational source. Like I would follow you guys or tune into one of your lives to hear from someone that has a company or that is part of an organization in a destination that I may be interested in to see how I would be able to be of service to them should I go to that destination. That's what I'm getting.
Well, that would be a more specific sense. But we also sell products on our website we use the funds of that to support some of the indigenous communities. So if you go to millennialchannel.org, you're going to find products that you can purchase, such as hoodies, coffee mugs, and those type of purchases are going to be supportive in the nature of us working to create a more humanitarian world. We use our Instagram to connect the advocacy trends that are happening internationally. So one of the things that we talked about at the beginning of this is that advocacy can really be something that's seen in your everyday life, and that's something that Millennial Channel essentially tries to embody. Because I don't want people to think that because I'm an advocate, you're going out of your way to do something. Just because you're traveling in itself, that is a form of advocacy. If you're brunching correctly, that could be a form of advocacy, depending on how those brunch funds are being used. What you're doing can really make a difference. And I think millennials in general have that, that connection to a social impact. Overall, they're definitely going to choose the company or the product that has a socially conscious, awareness to it. That's just embodied in their nature of millennials. And so I think that, there's so many different ways to teach millennials to do that. And if you want to say that we're an informational source, then sure, we definitely do teach people how they can use their everyday life in advocacy and show them the different trends of advocacy that are international. If you look at Millennial Channel's Instagram, you'll see what's going on in Haiti or the Dominican Republic, or in Sudan or in India. You'll see these type of news sources and just a different perspective that you wouldn't see on the global news. So if you're traveling or thinking about traveling to these places, it may spark these different ideas. So I definitely think that we're informational source in that sense, but we're also working to do other things like connect millennial humanitarians and such.
Okay, so how do you do that? How do you connect millennials with humanitarian opportunities, or the word you just said it like 30 seconds ago. I feel like it starts with an A, not just humanitarian, but thank you. If I wanted to take a trip 2 months from now, me and a couple of my friends, we decide that, all right, well, we got some PTO or we've got some free time. We want to go somewhere, but when we go, we want to do something useful or something positive. Fill in the blanks for me.
I definitely, so that's something that's going to be on the Millennial Channel app. So I want you to be able to say, wow, I want to spend a day of my time donating some of my time at a local charity, speaking to, orphaners. I think that would be something that you could, do. But also, I also, want to connect millennials in the sense that they can do this in their everyday life. So one of the things that we've done is we've hosted Chinese classes for lower income communities in Brooklyn. That's something that was intergenerational. That's something that didn't really include traveling out of your comfort zone. So that means that if you were at the local library in Brooklyn, New York, you could have literally had a free Chinese workshop. That Chinese workshop could have sparked an idea that you maybe want to visit China, or maybe you want to have some type of business connection there. That introduction to that type of culture or that language, we don't know how it's going to react with your history or where you are presently, and it really can spark something amazing. So we're doing it by showing people how to interact with advocacy in their local communities and how to interact with advocacy in their international communities. And so by us working with, these indigenous communities in Paraguay, we're raising awareness to the funds that they have going on. So the millennials that are working with us, they're able to say, oh, I want to donate money to this indigenous family in Paraguay. That's also another way. So there's many different ways that, we're working to support millennial advocacy overall, internationally and domestically.
Okay, so it's interesting that, for me at least, that politics is also part of your platform. I've often debated with going to certain destinations based off of some type of political uprising or political something or other going on in other places. Um, Particularly what comes to mind is DR.
Hmm.
I am really hesitant on going to DR strictly because I know how their tensions with the Haitian community are. Um, I'm not Haitian, but I've had friends that thought I was Haitian for years, and a bitch was flattered. But that being said, it's like I've known people that have traveled there and, had really uncomfortable situations arise where they've seen a lot of like, brutality and just assault outright, that it's just like, all right, well, y'all are lighter than me. And you guys, by the grace of God, didn't get involved in what was happening right in front of you. But if I show up and just keep my mouth shut, you know what I mean? Like as soon as I open my mouth, you'll know I'm American, but I don't ever want to put myself in a position where that's what saves me. You know what I mean? And I
Mhm.
also didn't want to ever feel like I am going to be, I don't know, it's just something about it where I feel I don't want to feel as if I am supporting a government or an institution because again, I'm showing up just as someone who has no real strong idea of what's going on around me. Like I show up, I check into my Airbnb, and I go to my different excursions that I book on Airbnb. But the politics of it, the way that they treat the Haitians that have lived there their entire lives. And it's not that like all Dominicans hate Haitians. Like I'm not trying to imply that, but for those of y'all that have listened to the past episodes, I've really gotten into, how I feel about going to DR in particular. And that's not the only country that I know. India, for example, is not exactly or has not been known to be the safest or most comfortable place for many solo women travelers. And so little things that I've heard and learned from other people who have been in those situations have kind of reserved me from going. In terms of the politics of it, how are you a bridge between a traveler and the politics of a destination that I'm considering going to? Like, do you guys, like, what is your stance? Do you try to just educate and let people make the decision on their own? Or do you guys take the route of here is where you do not want to go because of X, Y, and Z political reasons? What is your function in that?
Well, I think it's something completely different. I think we're turning it on its head and we're definitely saying that traveling itself is a soft power and political act. Just the usage of travel, is a persuasive approach, of international relations, a bridge between culture and languages. And that is what politics is. That's what global politics is. And I think that, if you are an economic bloc, and you are traveling, then you have more power than you realize. I think that if you can bring, if you can transform an economy into a thriving nation, that is politics in itself. And I don't think that, Millennial Channel is used to analyze the different political structures of each country and see how it's safe or not safe for each traveler to go at a time. It's definitely it's going back to what you said, an informational source or something that really is helping people connect the dots and realizing, how their travel can be impactful. I mean, if you are going, if you're arriving at an international airport, just the clothes that you have on are extremely impactful. You are interfacing with the world. You are essentially on a global stage by being in an international airport, whether you're in Frankfurt, Germany, or whether you're in Taipei, Taiwan, and you have on maybe a shirt that says NSARS. That can spark someone to just look up what that means. I mean, traveling has so many different levels of impact, or whether you decide that you want to uplift an entire community simply by going to all of their restaurants that are in that community at a time, that can transform whether that neighborhood is going to eat that week or not. I mean, that sense of understanding that you're traveling is political can really transform how you use it.
So how would you suggest a traveler who is on limited, I won't say limited, but someone that's not a chain, actually, you know what? I'm gonna do ones and twos for y'all. Some of y'all are traveling on points. So if someone that is traveling on points, or they happen to work for Marriott, so they get that employee discount, or their spouse, family member, whatever. So they are traveling and they're staying at some place that is, like you mentioned before, Ritz-Carlton or Wynn Resorts, whatever. If you stay at a resort, if you're staying at some place that's not local, small, how would you suggest someone still be able to, outside of just, wearing t-shirts and stuff like that, how would you suggest someone is able to use that trip for some level of advocacy or humanitarian work?
Well, the first thing I would suggest is that you go to a local vegan restaurant. Every community has a vegan restaurant, and that vegan restaurant is more than likely definitely owned by someone that is from that neighborhood. Someone that's not only from that neighborhood, but someone that's sourcing their food from local farms from that neighborhood. And that is a chain reaction of you just, being an international humanitarian, in the sense that, wow, all I did was have a juice. Can you imagine? When I went to Colombia, I was stunned at the amount of vegan restaurants that were available. I'm a lifelong vegan. I was raised vegan. I'm
Okay.
vegetarian now. But I would not think that when spending my month in Colombia that I would, interact with so many vegan restaurants, to the point where I was like, wow, they have better quality vegan restaurants than they do in the States. The food is sourced from the local farm, so it's definitely fresh, definitely high quality. And I think that even to the point where they have, vegan burgers, vegan burger restaurants that are just solely for vegan burgers.
Okay.
Okay, so that'll be the first thing that you can do. The second thing is, as I always said, start local. How about one of the things that you pack in your suitcase be a local brand or a local sustainable brand, and then you're taking that brand international just by having it in your suitcase, whether that be a local water bottle brand, or whether that's a local wax company, or a local candle company. Having that with you and bringing that abroad, that's a dream for the community itself, or that community at least, to think that their brand is now traveling borders.
That's actually a really good point. I never considered. So thanks for that, Jim. What ways would you suggest that someone who may not necessarily be looking to actively do something like tangible, hands-on advocacy, like, or humanitarian? Like, I don't want to go and volunteer someplace, but I want to find um, a community or some type of resource that I can just give funds to, or that I can just bring awareness to by visiting, or even in terms of sourcing things to do. Like, I want to just have a good time. How would you suggest that a traveler is able to choose companies that they can somehow be doing good with, as opposed to just saying, okay, well, since I'm staying at, a chain facility, I don't want to do everything on this property. I would like to venture out and do something outside. How would you suggest that a traveler go about actually making sure that the places that they book these excursions with, or the places that they're giving their money to, are connected to communities?
Well, I understood your question. There were two questions in that question. I want to go back before I answer. So part of the question that I got was, how can, people that want to, like, donate money, or things of that nature, but also have fun at the same time, how can they incorporate that? And so when you asked that, I immediately thought of a question that I asked similarly on one of the Millennial Channel lives that we have weekly. And I thought about something that Rescue said when we talked about exploring Africa. If you want to give back in advocacy, or something of that nature, and you don't want to go too much out of your comfort zone, then why not have a birthday party brunch, or a birthday party, and a percentage of the brunch goes to your favorite charity. That's something that you could easily do, because you're going to have a brunch or for your birthday anyway, or you're going to have a happy hour for your birthday anyway. So if you go to a happy hour and say, hey, I'm going to have 15 of my friends at this happy hour and I'm going to donate, 15% of it to Millennial Channel or your favorite nonprofit, then you're going to say, wow, I'm really being an advocate in my everyday life, and I didn't even do anything but mind my business and have a good time.
Right.
Okay, now, and then the second part of your question is, I'm hearing, what do you do when you want to go abroad and you just want to have a good time and you want to go to, you don't really want to, do anything in particular, but you want to make sure the place that you are spending your money at is, a local business.
Right.
Well, I would definitely say that, you want to go to if you're a millennial, of course, you want to go to, a local winery or a local beer garden. I mean, that's going to be sourcing from the community, obviously. So that would be something that you can do. I think that you should always have conversations with the people around you. See, what communities they go to, what are their local cafes, what are their traditions, or maybe if you just took a walk outside of your hotel or wherever you're staying, you'll see that there's a line in front of someplace. That in itself might show you that is, a community staple and someplace that you probably should also try to support as well.
Okay. Another thing that you had mentioned earlier is really dismantling the idea that Black and brown countries are all third world countries and that they've kind of, are laden with the contrast and comparison of whiteness to non-whiteness. How do you guys at Millennial Channel combat that in particular? And how can we as travelers help you guys with that part of your mission?
Well, the thing about it is there is so many countries in this world that we don't know about. And it is insane to think that you can be extremely educated in America and you cannot know of a country like Burkina Faso. I mean, literally, I can assure you, I'm getting my hair done by an African woman in Asia. And she's telling me, I'm like, oh, where are you from? And she's like, oh, Burkina Faso. And I'm like, excuse me, where is that? And to learn about a new country after you have 2 master's degrees is kind of just like, well, where did I go wrong? I mean, how did you call me educated? Well, I don't even know what's going on. There's countries in South America, Suriname. There's so many countries that we just don't know about. Why is that? Because there is this dismantled vision of where they're supposed to be on the global stage. And because of, how colonialism has had an impact on their political, economic, social structure, they don't even have a chance of being marketed in tourist companies. Tourist companies aren't even focusing on them. And to think that tourism is the sole thing that could actually change their entire nation into a thriving economy is baffling, because Black millennials in particular have the power to do that. They're traveling all over the place. All of my friends on Instagram, they're in Tulum. I don't know where your friends are. Some of my friends are in Budapest. Some of my friends, I mean, they're just now in a pandemic.
Right.
So the Black travel dollar is not going anywhere, and it's going to be somewhere, and it could actually be used in a way that people don't even know. Because if you just say, oh, I'm going to spend 6 months, all of my friends, we're going to this particular place and we're going to be socially conscious about how we're spending money. Wow, that just $1 million. I mean, and that's just a small amount of the Black millennials if we choose. I mean, we're saying that this over 50 billion Black travel dollars is over $50 billion. Well, I mean, where is it going? To Paris?
Right. And it's not that it takes the entire 50 billion to help improve the infrastructure of many countries.
Can 1 million be, in a place of, at least solidarity, strategy, something?
And question for you, is there, because I don't want anyone to feel as if this is outside of any level, any price point, if you will. So would you be able to speak to the varying ways that someone could kind of incorporate this into any kind of trip, whether it is a family trip and you're traveling with your children, whether you're traveling with a partner, going solo, I just feel like sometimes it can kind of miss people in the sense that it kind of feels like, oh, well, that's if you're just, you've got 6 months to be abroad and, skip around and go all these places, and you can go to, the forest and look into how indigenous people live. And I just really feel that, well, no, you could be a solo traveler and not necessarily spend, a month backpacking through the woods, but there are different levels of advocacy that can be, there are different approaches to it. Would you be able to speak to different, like a really low cost way that someone could do it? And well, no, you've already done the low cost, but if you are interested in doing more like a family trip, like if you're traveling with your children, something that might be a little bit safer, and then something that, if you just got the bread to burn, like what is like I don't want to say a ball out of control, but you don't have a week to spend being a worker on a farm to, be that in tune with the land. But, something that's just a little more, I got about $500 that I could stand to part with, or I got $1,000 I could stand to part with. What can I do so that I trust also? Because something that I've been a little leery about is, I agree with, ask questions, talk to the people around you. But what are some things that you can, because I feel like now I'm asking you 3 questions, so apologizing in advance. But now I feel like I can ask anyone, what do you suggest? But how would I know, or what kind of securities should I have mentally, or things should I look out for to not be taken advantage of? Because I feel like anybody can say,
We'll come back to that. Okay. So listen, if you're not going to explore the local bookshop at the state right over, then you're not going to be excited about exploring the local bookshop in the country across the seas. I mean, so there's so many different ways that you can support a sustainable lifestyle. And as I said, it starts locally. Advocacy starts in your everyday life. Just these very simple things that you think, are nearly impossible to do, just by you saying, you know what, I'm going to carry a reusable water bottle instead of having a plastic water bottle, or deciding that you want to do that and bring that reusable water bottle with you abroad instead of you reusing water bottles. I mean, there's many different ways that you can practice, this, on a lower scale, so to speak. But I mean, if you have $1,000 to $1,500 to travel, that's a significant amount of money to travel. That's definitely an amount of money that you can definitely go overseas. I mean, depending on where you are, you can get a flight overseas in economy for about $600. So depending on how you want to live abroad, you can, or depending on where you're going, you can arrange for your stay to be about $300. I don't know if you're going to a place that you have friends or not, but I think that there are definitely, and I'm sure that there are German backpackers somewhere that had a blast with just $1,500 and hit a few countries with just that little bit of amount. And so in regards to staying safe when you're traveling, and making sure that you're not being taken advantage of, I mean, you just have to have that sense of street smarts that you would in your own city. I mean, I definitely don't think that, I mean, as someone like myself, I wouldn't say that I am the proponent of safe travel, so to speak, because I'm a very free spirit and I'm enjoying my travel and I'm meeting new people and I'm having a blast. So I'm the last person to give advice on how to stay safe and protect yourself 100%. However,
thank you
I
for that
definitely,
honesty.
but however, I would say, that I've survived thus far, and I have tons of friends in all types of cities just because of the fact that I was open to the situation, and I've met friends that have been my friends for years, and I keep those connections. And when I go back to those cities, I'm able to visit them and things of that nature. So you shouldn't be afraid to make those connections, but you should also, make sure that you have control of the situation. So I think essentially, if you approach someone, you really are necessarily in control of that situation, because they were not asking for you to approach them. So they really can't have some type of scam prepared. I mean, now if you're in Paris, they may. I mean, because crazy things going down in Paris. I mean, I literally had someone literally having a full-blown conversation with me as their hand is in my purse. Like, I just don't understand the level of audacity that they have. But I definitely think that there are ways that you can maintain a level of safety while enjoying yourself and being open to the environment.
Do you have any experience with things going wrong that you can use as like a cautionary tale?
That's a good question. I really don't think so.
I mean, I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised because the things that I've done, we're happy that, I've made it out of the countries that I've been in. So, but I definitely would say that I don't think I've had anything crazy happen. I've definitely had just, fun experiences with, locals and stuff, but nothing insane, I wouldn't think. I don't know. No, nothing crazy that I'm familiar with.
Okay, that's good then. I'm happy to hear that, and I pray that it always stays that way for you. So where can the people find you? Where can we get more information, and where can we stay up to date with the progress that Millennial Channel is making in terms of developing the app? Because at this point, it seems like it's absolutely a resource that we can tap into for, just opening our minds to places that we've never heard of. Because like you said, as educated as we want to be, if you're not doing an international law or international studies class, or if you're not targeting your education to world economies, then it's completely missed. It just doesn't really, you have to open yourself to have these places and people put in your purview. So where can we find you? Where can we tap in so that we have these opportunities to follow you and get this information and have our minds expanded, and then in time have more resources given to us so that as we travel, we can check in with you guys and see where all the humanitarian happenings is at.
Yeah, so definitely stay plugged in with us at Millennial Channel. It's Millennial Channel spelled the right way. MILLENNIAL and then millennialchannel.org spelled that same way. You can follow us on Twitter. Twitter has their cap on the word. So it's Millennial Channel without the A and the E. So Millennial and then CHNNL on
Mhm.
Twitter. And we will, if you follow us, sign up for our newsletter at millennialchannel.org. If you are plugged in with us, you'll definitely know when the app launches, and you guys will be the first to know. And I'm sure it will come with some deals. So it will behoove you to make sure that you're in the know about what Millennial Channel is doing.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your time. And folks, there will, of course, as the always, be links in the description box below. So don't forget to also, as a resource, where there will also be links. And if you're interested, if you're listening to the podcast and not watching the podcast, you can go to travelandshippodcast.com, and it's a real easy way to just get to the video for the podcast if you're not following. Follow me on the about to say the Instagrams. What's the thing where the videos? YouTube,
Yeah.
folks. So visual, audio, I got all the flavors for you. Well, actually just the two. I don't know what else there is. Ain't no sight, ain't no touch and smell over here, folks. So it was another really great conversation that absolutely highlighted my very very simple yet important, I don't even know what to say, it's a belief, but also show tagline that travel is more than vacation. It's not about just showing up to a place and having a good time. You can actually do good while having a good time, folks. All right, so thanks for listening, thanks for watching, thanks for joining us however you got us, and see you next week, folks. Bye.